Greetings, Earthlings. It's me, your host, Shaman Patrick, for another episode of The Shaman Patrick Show. You know, I get a little excited when I see somebody in active drug addiction. Not in the way that you might think. I mean, I hope they don't die. I hope they choose to get sober. But I also know that a drug addict, if they do get sober, they're probably going to get it on a level that nobody else will. People who haven't grappled with addiction, they don't really know all that much. I mean, they don't. They don't. I feel kind of sorry for people who have never had to grapple with an addiction. Seriously, because the act of getting sober is the real shit. I mean, yeah, there's a whole lot of other ways to come towards consciousness, but for the people who get sober, y'all are real fucking G's. I mean, really sober, not the performative sober, not the I've quit drinking, therefore I'm fine. Or I quit the feel free and I'm good, bro. Or yeah, I used to smoke marijuana, but it just didn't align with me anymore. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the people who use the opportunity to get off of substances and get on the real substance, the source energy substance, the stuff that really gets you high. Because all those drugs are a pale imitation of what being truly present actually is. So on today's episode of the Shaman Patrick Show, I'm going to help you. Hey, if you're an addict, if you're addicted to something, don't feel bad at all. If you're afraid of being known publicly as an addict, wouldn't it be better to be known as a former addict? I think so. So stick around for today's episode. This one's for you. Are you ready? Let's go.
He was once a storm in human form, sharp tongue, cold soul, heart worn and torn, living like a ghost who missed his grave till the spirit sang out and called him brave. He got rewired by the great unknown, heard the call like a dial tone to the bone. So pull up a chair, enjoy the glow. This is the Shaman Patrick Show.
The last episode I made was a 7-hour examination of Aubrey Marcus's many addictions. And, you know, some people said, you're judging him. No, I'm not. I'm actually trying to help him. I'm actually helping Aubrey Marcus realize, honey, come on. I love Aubrey. I love him so much. I think he could quite possibly get it. He could be a really amazing spiritual teacher if he can let go of that guru paradigm. Hey, the guru paradigm is ending. If you're a guru right now, it's coming to the end. We don't need gurus anymore. What do we need? We need co-experiencers. We need spiritual friends. We need spiritual teachers. That guru shit is played out. If you're trying to be a guru right now, get on board for the whoop train. I don't even know why I said that. What is a whoop train? Spirits, what is a whoop train? Why am I putting my glasses on? I have no idea who I am or what I'm doing here today. And I'm sober. I love not know. You know, I used to have to spend a lot of money to forget my name and forget who I was and forget where I was. Little did I know I could get all that for free. Just by I have no idea who I am. Wow. Wow. Man, how much I would have to drink a bunch of alcohol, do a bunch of cocaine, have a bunch of sex, just to forget who I was. That's why I did it. There's other reasons why I did it as well. But I am somebody who understands this process completely, having gotten sober myself. And also, I think it's very strange that in this day, when I got sober, I thought, well, that's it. I'm sober. Now I can be spiritual. But I didn't know that drugs were so into the spiritual community. I didn't know it was that bad until it came home to roost in me. I had to deal with somebody who was a enlightened microdoser. I had to deal with people who were using drugs, and they were like, you're not getting it, Patrick. You don't get it. You get so many revelations off of meth. And I said, shit, bitch, I had those revelations. That's crazy. I don't want those revelations on meth. I used to do psychedelics. I used to do all that shit. And I just still find it hard to believe that we're having this conversation. I thought, when I get sober, I'll be able to be the sober shaman and that'll be it. Nope, it's not it. And and part of me would say, I'd really rather not talk about this, but at the same time, I think we need to talk about it. We need to talk about the gurus and the teachers who are high as fuck. What the fuck are they even talking about? They're not even in reality. They're not even facing reality. They're off in Never Neverland talking about truth and this. This is also not telling other people how to live either. If you do drugs and you're getting benefit from those drugs, I don't know anybody who really does, but if it's working for you right now, please keep at it. And when it no longer works for you, please let me know. But as long as you're not hurting each other, which I find hard to believe, just the act of taking a substance is hurting you, potentially other people. But I do want to look at the statistics. Okay, I do want to look at these statistics because there's a lot of drug addicts in the world and in the United States. Looky here. As of 2023, approximately 48.5 million Americans aged 12 and older have a substance use disorder, which is, they say, a clinical term for addiction because for some reason addicts don't want to be known as addicts. We must think of the addict. They don't want to be known as an addict. And I'm telling you, if you can be known as an addict, because see, the ego doesn't want you known as an addict. But anyway, they're just going to keep coming up with new terms and stuff. I'm fine being known as an addict, a former addict. People judge me all the time, but they can't really judge me. You know why people can't judge me? Because I know myself. I don't ever feel judged by people. Do any of you ever feel judged by people? I mean, I don't ever feel judged by people. That's what's so mysterious to me when someone says, you're judging people, Patrick. No, I'm not. I'm helping people. You can help people. But also, I don't go into places where there's a bunch of drug shamans and drug addicts and go, y'all need to stop this. No, everybody's going to get it on their own or it's going to kill them, essentially. But we're not judging people when we're talking about drug addiction. I mean, if you use drugs and you can't stop using drugs, what does that make you? It's like, let's get like retarded up in here. That's what it is. It ain't a disorder. It's what's going on. Okay. So the total is comprised of the following groups: alcoholics, 28.9 people, drug addicts, 27.2 million people. And both of them is, 7.5 million people had both. Well, God, look at this. It's like calling homeless people unhoused or not wanting to use the word retarded because it would upset people who they don't care. They don't care. Nobody cares about this shit. They even use mental retardation in the mental health industry. They call it MR, but what do I know? Okay, so and of course, we're not talking about people who are intellectually disabled or challenged in that way. Of course not. We're talking about grown-ass human people who probably went to college who can't stop putting shit in their veins. That does make you retarded. It really does. Emotionally retarded, for sure. It's very childish. But marijuana, 19 stoners, pill heads, and coke heads. It's a lot of people. Do you know how many? Like, that's a lot of people. And yeah, I know there's a push to legalize these drugs. But like I said before, drug addicts and alcoholics can be very, very convincing people. We're not putting them down. Hey, I hope this video is a path to recovery for many people. I hope somebody watches this video and goes, oh gosh, you're right, Patrick. This is crazy. This is crazy. And somebody said, well, Patrick, you're not sober because you vape. Well, so what? I like to smoke. And shamans smoke. I mean, I don't smoke tobacco because it's full of so many additives and stuff. But I mean, hey, it's just a vape. Calm down, sweetie. Calm down. When I get tired of it, I'll put it away. Same with coffee. I took a break from coffee for a long time, and then I actually realized, you know what? I like coffee. I like it, but they're not severe mood-altering substances. They're not severe mood-altering substances at all. It's not like something that would numb me out severely to the world. But then again, you got to have a vice. I mean, coffee's probably not going to kill me, and neither is this. Very soon, very soon. But meth and cocaine and alcohol and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not. It's not necessarily about telling people how to live. And if some people don't want to listen to me because I drink coffee and vape, that's fine. Nobody's required to listen to me at all. Hey, by the way, let me remind you, we've got a cult-free guarantee here. You can support our work with confidence, knowing that we will never, ever start a cult or be guru shitty at all. Your peace of mind guaranteed. So thank you all for your support. Let's get on with today's presentation. I sound like I'm high or something. No, I'm just well rested. I slept really good last night. Okay, addiction is not awakening sobriety as the real path. If you're terrified of being labeled an addict, flip the script. Get excited about being known as a former addict. There's no shame in having fallen into the trap. The shame is in staying there and pretending it's enlightenment. Everyone's buying illusions, but few have the guts to break free of them. Sobriety isn't some boring afterthought. It's the ultimate flex, the courage to face yourself raw, unfiltered, without a chemical mask. That's what people actually respect. That's where the power is. And I know that's what people actually respect. You know, when I am in certain circles, people who have achieved long-term sobriety, they do get respect. You're going to be in early recovery for 5 years, but I respect people who have long-term recovery. I don't necessarily respect people who still use drugs. I don't, because I know what that does to your thinking. I know what it does. It warps your thinking and it warps your mind. And when you get sober, you can see this kind of shit clearly. Many people create their own suffering in their lives and create suffering in the lives of others. And when you no longer do that, when you no longer participate in that life, you see it clearly. Yeah, taking drugs creates suffering in your life and the lives of others. Another reason why I quit using cocaine. I know this sounds crazy, but I quit using cocaine because it was funding underworld activities. Like I was like, what if this is funding terrorism? Like, what if this is funding something that I don't want to be involved in? I'm gonna vote with my wallet. I want to vote with my wallet. But yeah, you are funding some things that may not align with you spiritually. I'm just saying. So I mean, if motherfuckers aren't gonna eat meat, but they're still gonna do meth. I have known people like this. They're like, I'm a vegan because I don't want to cause suffering to animals, but they are smoking meth, letting all them demons and shit in their body. It's a fucking playground. But that's how we know people are delusional. All right, so active drug addicts can be smooth talkers, masters of convincing you and themselves that their visions, their highs, their downloads are sacred. But let's be real, anyone can sound spiritual with a belly full of chemicals. It's the sober ones who can stand in the silence without crumbling, who can walk into the void and not reach for an escape hatch. Real, grounded spirituality takes place in sobriety. The act of getting sober is the actual initiation, the real mystical threshold. It's not tripping balls, it's learning how to live awake. And I know that there are some people who watch this channel that will say, oh, it's plant medicine, it's harmless. You know what? Let me posit this, okay? Maybe at one point in the evolution of human consciousness, the psychedelics were necessary. Let's just say that they were, okay? What if they were no longer necessary? What if enough people had awakened? What if enough of this consciousness had flooded into this reality that those drugs were just no longer necessary? I mean, that would make sense to me, because now those drugs have a whole lot of spirits attached to them. And let me tell you a story spirits told me. They told me this story that long ago there was a shaman who got kicked out of his tribe. He got kicked out of his tribe, but he took the medicine with him. He took the plant medicine with him. I'm just going to tell that this was a wild story, but he took the plant medicine with him. And when he took that plant medicine with him, he was not authorized to use that plant medicine. So he used it recreationally. And that's how drug addiction was born, from people misusing the medicine. And got some other things about the witches versus shaman wars too, but that's for another video. But so addiction was born from the misuse of this medicine. And if it's no longer necessary anymore, why does it persist? Why do people keep using it if it's no longer necessary? Well, because there's spirits that are associated with it. It's kind of like why drug addicts are so very convincing. They'll tell you that these drugs are harmless. They don't do anything. It's natural. It's medicinal. They'll tell you all this stuff, probably because there's a spirit that has set up shop in them, and they want to encourage their friends to come and set up shop in another people. It's kind of like why it's such a hard barrier to break or get through to people, because I know, somebody I know who got caught up in this psychedelic stuff. He started hanging out with people who were spiritually subjugated, and then he became spiritually subjugated. And then it's very hard to reach people who have been spiritually subjugated in that way. So there's the lie of harmless drugs. Let's talk about this. Stop parroting the nonsense that psychedelics and other drugs are harmless. They're not. Every hit jacks your dopamine system, frying your natural reward circuits and leaving your brain scrambling to overcompensate. The afterglow people brag about, it's just your nervous system in shock, trying to rebalance after you dumped a chemical tsunami into it. Your brain has to heal after every trip, and sometimes it doesn't fully bounce back. Memory, mood, regulation, emotional stability, they all take a hit. So let's kill the propaganda. These substances absolutely have consequences. They bend your brain chemistry out of shape, they warp your natural rhythms, and they don't give you anything you can't access sober. Pretending otherwise is just marketing for people who can't admit they're hooked on a shortcut that's slowly dismantling their own wiring. And that's how those spirits subjugate you. And I've talked at length, like, you want to stay away from people who want to do ceremonies with you involving drugs, or just ceremonies in general. Like, I would never ever do a ceremony or invite people to participate in ceremonies if they're strangers. Like, to work with me, there are some prerequisites. You have to be sober, otherwise it's a waste of money for us both. I mean, unless you're sober, you don't really benefit from any healing. I mean, that's kind of the lure too, to keep you numbed out and drugged out. It does nothing. Does nothing. And I'm not about taking people's money and giving them nothing in return. So you got to watch out for people who want to feed drugs or are on drugs. Some people will say it's just marijuana, man, but there's a lot of spirits associated with that as well. But there is something about the I'm not an addict people. I just use these drugs occasionally. And I know people who use meth this way. They use it recreationally. Like, I just do it recreationally, but nobody in their right mind would fucking do this shit recreationally, because in sobriety, you don't need any substances. Like, some people told me, Patrick, are you ever going to relapse? Well, I don't know if I'm ever going to relapse, but I'll tell you this, I know there's no drug that I could add to my experience to make it any better, to make it. But when I had dental work done, the doctor prescribed me some hydrocodone or some pain pills. Now, the old me would have been, the addict me would have been like, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. But I did not like the feeling of them. I didn't like it at all. And in fact, anytime I have to take a medication, I had to take a muscle relaxer for my stomach cramps. And I was on that muscle relaxer. I hated every time I had to take it. I hated taking it. I hated it. And I finally told the doctor, like, I don't want this shit anymore. I actually tell people to not give me drugs. Don't prescribe me anything. But especially, I don't like the feeling of being altered in any way or being, because I can relax myself. I can make myself feel better. It does nothing for me to take pills or drink or feel free or alcohol. It just makes me feel, I can't imagine it. Sometimes I think, God, how was I able to live being hungover all the time or living without getting enough sleep? I mean, I can't imagine the way that I used to live in that way. It boggles my mind. I don't know how people are doing it now. I don't know how people can go out drinking and then go to work in the morning. It's really messed up. I just don't know how people are doing it. But then again, I was spiritually subjugated. In a lot of ways, addicts can become spiritually subjugated. And it's kind of like they don't know they're spiritually subjugated because a lot of these spirits are pseudo-learned spirits. And these pseudo-learned spirits will convince people of some pretty cockamamie things. But let's talk about the I'm not an addict, bro. It's medicinal. If you're running back to psychedelics over and over again, you're not on a sacred journey. You're ate up with spirits. Every medicine ceremony you crawl back to, every download you chase, every microdose ritual that you romanticize, it's all just another fix dressed in feathers and incense. That isn't transcendence, it's dependency with a dream catcher slapped on top. You're not communing with God, you're hosting squatters in your psyche, and those spirits are feeding on your desperation. Because they'll say, well, psychedelics aren't addictive. They're not chemically addictive, or marijuana is not chemically addictive. And you know what? We can split hairs all you want, but I have heard psychedelic enthusiasts. I'm turning this fan on with my feet. See, I'm multi-talented. Got hot in here, so I have a fan down here and I was turning it on with my feet. But I've heard them say, it's medicinal, it's medicine, man. But the revelations that you get on that shit, how do you know they're not coming from entities trying to subjugate you? How do you know? If you won't listen to sober people, if you've just rejected any input from me, thank you, spirits, thank you. If you reject any input from sober people, how would you know if what you were getting is the right information? Let me talk. I had to deal with somebody, and he was telling me that I don't know anything, that I need to go back to using mushrooms, that I need to go back to using meth. And I'm thinking to myself, why wouldn't you listen to somebody who doesn't need that shit? Why wouldn't you listen to somebody who had once done it and then said, oh yeah, that's not it? Because the only thing that makes sense is that they're spiritually subjugated. The spirits don't want them knowing that. If you don't know anything about how spirits subjugate people, do some research on that. I might make a video on that, actually. But yeah, spirits subjugate people all the time. Every person who is obese is spiritually subjugated. Every person who's a sex addict is spiritually subjugated. Every addict is you're all spiritually subjugated. If you're doing things that cause you harm, you're spiritually subjugated. Like somebody who weighs 500 pounds, they are ate up with spirits. And how they have to realize that on their own, because now we've got body positivity, and it's a bad thing. But also, I know everything happens exactly as it should. I'm not trying to be Captain Save-A-Ho anymore. I'm Captain Save-A-Patrick, as you should be. But psychedelic culture loves to disguise addiction as spirituality. The ayahuasca tourists, the mushroom shamans for hire, the Silicon Valley tech bros chasing clarity through microdosing, they've all built a cathedral out of their compulsions and called it enlightenment. But the truth is ugly. The more you trip, the more your spirit gets fragmented. The more your ego convinces itself it's expanding while it's actually being gnawed to pieces. Real spirituality doesn't need a chemical crutch. Real spirituality is the sober confrontation with reality itself, not another escape into kaleidoscopic hallucinations. If you want the real initiation, put the pipe down, Close the medicine bag. Step out of the circle. Spirits aren't guiding you anymore. They're consuming you. Sobriety is the only ground sturdy enough to hold actual transcendence. Everything else is just spiritual cosplay for people too afraid to meet themselves unaltered. Now, when somebody told me that shamans are sober, like they told me they're, Patrick, to be a shaman, you're going to have to get sober. And I was like, well, fuck. But I love drinking. I love partying. I love taking pills. I love all that stuff. But see, you're going to have to be sober to notice the subtle shifts in energies. You're going to have to be sober to notice the frequencies and the vibrations. Somebody told me the other day that that psychic vampires are on the rise. And I said, well, just shift out of the frequency of the psychic vampires. But if you're on drugs, you don't know how to shift out of those frequencies. I mean, look at our good friend Aubrey Marcus holding up that bottle of Feel Free and all these supplements and shit that he's on. He don't know how to change his frequency on his own. He needs stuff to change his frequency on his own. That's why his life is such a mess. That's why he has a messy personal life. And here's another thing. You can't have a messy personal life when you're a shaman as well. It's why I had to set strict ass fucking boundaries with people. No shenanigans, no lies, no gaslighting. You have to have sort of a clean thing going on. And yeah, I'm cleaning up some wreckage in my life right now, which is, hey, you're gonna have to clean some wreckage in your life. It doesn't necessarily mean that when you're sober that life is not going to present you challenges. I mean, yeah, I got some challenges right now, but then again, a lot of people do. But at the same time, your challenge doesn't define you and your spiritual practice at all. But to be a shaman, it requires sobriety, because how are you going to know which spirits are doing what? How are you going to know the subtle shift in energy? Yeah, I mean, because you can actually, when you're sober and you're spiritually attuned, you can actually read people. It's harder to do on the internet because we're all kind of performing to cameras here, but you can sense, like, some people know I got some dark spirits in me, and I do. Those dark spirits are very good at handling certain things. Like a shaman is going to have a lot of darkness in them, but also the darkness is there for a purpose. I'm actually not trying to get rid of it. I'm not trying to get rid of it at all. But at the same time, I don't judge it as the darkness. Some of the dark spirits that I work with are very good at handling certain things. And if I'm drunk or high, I'm not going to know how to work with those spirits at all. Those dark spirits, they might start running the show, you see? So when you're a shaman, you have to be sober. That's why I'm highly suspicious of all these drug shamans. I'm like, what are y'all doing? How are you able to do this shit when you're high? And again, if you're really tapped in and tuned in to higher consciousness, those drugs don't, like, why bother? They don't do anything for you. So I think it's just fascinating, like, why I'm having to have this conversation with people about this. Because it should be obvious that we want, like, do you want your school teacher to roll into class drunk? Think about this, okay? Do you want your college professor to be sneaking drinks of vodka in between classes? Do you want your teachers to be drunk? Do you want your teachers to be high? Or do you expect them to be sober? I do. There's no way in hell I would want to work with a mentor that was not sober. If I know somebody's using drugs, I have to kind of put them in the category of they can't be trusted. I mean, they can't be trusted to treat themselves well. How are they going to treat their clients well? And I'm doing a video tomorrow about the end of the guru paradigm, but you'll see how drugs are usually the thing that bring people down. Drugs and sex are usually the thing that bring people down. There you go. there you go. But you got to watch out for this shit, because it's like a vampire. You got to invite it in, But sometimes they get in the door uninvited, I know. But the real initiation happens when you get sober. It really, really does. And I wish it was another way. I do wish it was another way. It would be fun to be able to do drugs and with no consequences and awaken. I mean, yeah, let's share a bottle of wine. And, that sounds so good, doesn't it? But even Eckhart Tolle says, if he starts to lose consciousness, he stops drinking. You don't want to lose that consciousness, because being able to stay present, you can't stay present when you're on drugs. You can't. You start to lose consciousness, lose focus. You want to be vigilant against spirits and thoughts and things like that. I just think it's crazy that I have to make a whole ass fucking presentation about this. I should just be able to say, hey, if you're addicted to drugs, don't. Because that's not real spirituality. But I'm gonna go ahead and talk about Carl Jung. Ooh, this is gonna make some people with master's degrees very nervous. How do you know about psychology, Patrick? How do you know about Carl Jung? How do you know all this stuff? Go on. What are your credentials? All right, here's Jungian and spiritual perspectives. It's a perversion of initiation. Carl Jung nailed it. Addiction is a warped, counterfeit initiation. Drugs mimic the ancient rites of passage, except instead of unlocking your deeper self, they short-circuit it. Psychedelics don't make you a mystic. They make you a tourist with a spiritual souvenir in your head. The Society of Analytical Psychology frames drug use as a failed initiation attempt, a childish shortcut to adulthood that leaves you spiritually stunted instead of expanded. Because human beings are ritualistic creatures. We need rituals. Everything that humans do is a ritual. So let's go back to me drinking coffee and vaping. Ritualistic, you see? That's why you gotta have a vice. Hopefully one that's not so damaging to you. But every morning I wake up and I have a cup of coffee. I took away that ritual for a while and I had to develop a new ritual. But human beings are very ritualistic creatures. And people who use drugs are seeking spirituality. They're seeking spiritual. That's why I get excited when I see an addict, because I know they're spiritual. Hey, when I worked in the rehab, we talked about spirituality and conspiracy theories and all of that stuff. Like an addict is somebody who's going to see the world differently, that because they're spiritual already. Those addicts are very spiritual, and they're craving spiritual experiences that they get through drugs. And so if you take away the drugs, then with the right mentorship and guidance, sometimes you could do it on your own, but it's very, very rare, you will have that spiritual awakening that you think you already had. So if you're using drugs in a spiritual way, it's fake. You're not actually having spiritual experiences. They're counterfeit. And then if you put that shit down, then you start having real spiritual experiences instead of the counterfeit ones. All right. So I want people to have real spiritual experiences, because any experience that you get with drugs is going to be counterfeit. I'm sorry. So it's a false path to transcendence. And let's stop pretending the high is holy. The temporary glow from a pill, powder, or plant isn't enlightenment. It's a chemical sugar rush dressed up in shaman drag. Addiction hijacks your innate hunger for transcendence and sells you a counterfeit ticket. You get the illusion of elevation while your consciousness shrinks into the claustrophobic prison of dependency. And that's just the way it is. Hey, you're not special. You're not unique. Nobody can do drugs in that way. And it's a shortcut. Like when the person I know abandoned sobriety in favor of this sort of psychedelic, polyamory, sex-fueled lifestyle, I told him, I said, you're trying to take shortcuts, dude. You're on the path. You're on the shortcut. Like, this is it. We tried to find an easier and softer way, but we could not. You want to awaken, you're on that path right now. But if you go off onto this side quest of sex and drugs and all of that stuff, you're trying to take a shortcut to something, but it's going to actually be the long way around. It's going to be the long way around. And he's like, Patrick, it's medicinal. You just don't get it. You don't get it. You don't understand. You're fear-based. Just because you can't handle drugs and alcohol doesn't mean other people can. Hey, bitch, nobody can. You're not special. You're not unique. No one can handle drugs and alcohol well at all. It fucks up everybody. All right. So some people think that addicts can't handle their drugs or their alcohol. No. If you can handle your drugs and your alcohol without having your life fall apart, that's the problem. It's not about willpower. You got too much willpower. That's the problem. All right. That's why buffers are very dangerous for people. So we focus on inner experience. True transcendence isn't found in a capsule. Meditation, prayer, fasting, ritual, and real shadow work take you deeper into yourself and beyond ego. No hallucination can compete with the unshakable stillness of actual inner connection. Sobriety is the real doorway to higher consciousness, not the hallucinated funhouse mirror of drugs. Do you hear that? Shadow work is a trip, yo. So the first time I really did shadow work, like really did it, I vomited. I was like sick. Like all that energy got released, and I thought I had taken something. I thought I had taken, because I used to have this pill bottle. I take trazodone at night for sleep, and almost all former addicts do that, by the way. We all take trazodone, but sometimes I would switch it up. I would take it in the morning instead, and I would start to feel sick, like, oh, what have I done? But now I no longer, I keep it in its own separate thing. But at the same time, when you do shadow work, when you really do that stuff, it feels like you're tripping because you release all of that energy. You release all of that energy. All right, let's move on to the next slide. The reality of addiction's impact on. See, my God, y'all are so crazy. So some spirit said, "Well, Patrick, you take trazodone at night for sleep. You're not sober." Here we go. So I do I need the trazodone? Probably not. But I've been taking it for so long, it's just become a part of my daily life. And I do think that now is the time for me to get off of that stuff. How long have I been on that? See, so the next time I meet with my doctor, I'm going to titrate off of that. Thank you, spirits. Thank you. Because it's time to get off. I just don't like taking drugs at all anymore. I don't. But I do think I'm ready to get off of that one. I'm ready to come into a deeper kind of clarity. So I'm so glad I made this episode, because yeah, I am going to take the initiative. I've tried to take myself off of it in the past. And you really don't want to go cold turkey with any of this type of stuff. But man, I was prescribed that years ago, and it's just been one of those things. I've even stopped questioning it for a while, but now I'm really starting to think, what is that? Like, I just don't need that anymore. Thank you. This is evidence that you can be blinded to this shit on your own. Like, I'm talking about this stuff and I'm like, but wait, I take trazodone for sleep. Okay. I need to stop doing that. Yeah, I totally need to stop doing that. Okay, thank you, spirits. Thank you. So here's the reality of addiction's impact. Because see here, I want the real sober reality. And, and to be fair, like, even when I take it at night, I'm asleep. Like, nowadays, when I put my head on the pillow, I'm asleep just like that. So I take it right before I go to bed. So I don't even think I need it anymore. To be quite honest. Because see, you get not only on the Shaman Patrick, I'm going to go through my shit too. But the more I think about it, like, why am I even taking that shit anymore? See, and y'all didn't even have to call me out on that one. I got fact checking spirits over my shoulder here. So there's a contraction of consciousness. Addiction doesn't expand awareness, it contracts it. Your entire universe collapses around the next dose. Rationalizations, justifications, lies. This is not higher consciousness. It's consciousness suffocated. You hear me? So, let's take away like the caffeine and the matcha and the nicotine, and the sort of drugs that could also be food as well. Like, let's take away that, because I drink a couple cups of coffee a day, but I stop at a certain time. Like, what time is it now? 9:30? Yeah, no more coffee after 10. But if you can't stop drinking coffee, or if you need coffee throughout the day, that might be an addiction. But what about vaping? I do know that nicotine increases spiritual activity. My spirits told me that, but my spirits also don't want me to smoke cigarettes because there's so many additives in those cigarettes. But the nicotine is a really good spiritual thing. Nicotine is not all that bad for you. Nicotine is like caffeine, but at the same time, are we addicted to these things? Could we talk about that a little bit more? Do you expect your spiritual teachers to not do anything at all? I personally don't see a problem with smoking or drinking coffee. I don't see a problem with that. I know some people who are smoking cigarettes, they don't want to smoke cigarettes anymore. I personally have never seen anything wrong with that at all. But I know some people might think that it's not, that you don't need it, or that it's not necessary or whatever, but I just love it. I love smoking. I do, but I'm not going to smoke cigarettes anymore. I personally don't see anything wrong with coffee. However, overusing anything could be a problem for anybody. All right, I don't know how to feel about that. If you want to chime in below, let me know. Do you see anything wrong with smoking cigarettes or coffee or anything like that, or tea, or any of these sort of mild mood altering things that don't really fuck with you all that much? Now, energy drinks, I think those are a little crack-a-lacka. I think when you start breaking shit down and reconfiguring stuff, that is my opinion only. I miss smoking cigarettes, but at the same time, I don't miss the smell. I would much. What flavor is this? This is strawberry kiwi. I like strawberry. I like fruity flavors because I'm a little fruity, if you know what I mean. All right, so a cycle of negative states. The cycle is predictable. Use, withdraw, obsession, repeat. Each phase wrecks your nervous system, plunges you into depression, and chains you tighter to the very thing you think is liberating you. Call that spiritual if you want, but that's just the ego doing PR for its own decay. Do you see that? You use, you withdraw, you obsess, you repeat. Each phase wrecks you and plunges you into depression, because you may not know that you're feeling the way that you're feeling because you're numbed out to the way that you actually feel. And also, people don't drink, snort, or trip because they're free. They do it because society robbed them of the genuine meaning and initiation. Addiction is the unconscious screaming for depth in a shallow, consumer-driven world. But if you mistake that scream for the path, you never actually find what you're searching for. And the thing about procuring drugs and needing drugs and all of that stuff, it is, man, I don't miss that at all. Having to wait in parking lots, waiting for dealers to arrive and all that stuff. Being scared that cops are going to show up. Not being able to do anything or be able to go anywhere. because I was too drunk or too high. Like it got so bad in Chicago, like I would go to the grocery store just drunk because I was drinking all the time. If I needed to buy something at TJ Maxx or whatever, I'd go into TJ Maxx just drunk. God, but I had to be drunk. Eventually I had to be drunk to do anything. And there's people out there that are like, well, I'm not that bad. I'm not that bad. And we have a saying about that. Yet. I went to my first AA meeting in 1994. And I remember telling the people in there, like I would never steal to buy drugs or alcohol. I would never steal. I would never sell my body to buy drugs or alcohol. I'll come from a good home. And they all said, yet. And suffice it to say, I never really stole anything, but sell my body, certainly. I certainly did that. And it's something I'm not proud of, but it is a reality that I did. I was a hoe. Not a full-time hoe. It was when I was really desperate, but it wasn't like I was on the street going, I suck your dick for $5. I never got to that point. But if I had not gotten sober when I did, I probably would have ended up as a toothless little hobbit addict on the streets of Chicago, or I would have died, essentially. Okay, so addiction as a spiritual search versus a path to higher consciousness. Addiction is a counterfeit search. It borrows the language of the sacred, but leaves you empty and scrambling for another hit. The real search demands ego death, not dopamine hijacking. And every high ends, every trip fades, every vision evaporates. And then what? You're right back to where you started, except worse, because now you've convinced yourself the shortcut was the real road. True spirituality leaves you with peace, wholeness, and connection that doesn't disappear with the come down. Yeah, you may remember some of these spiritual experiences, but they're all going to be tainted by what you had to do to get them. I've heard Aubrey Marcus talk about some of his spiritual experiences. I've heard some other people talk about theirs when they were high and all that. It just sounds Looney Tunes to me. I like to hear people talk about their sober spiritual experiences. I hear about them a lot in the recovery circles that I hang out in and the meetings I go to. People talk a lot about sober spiritual experiences. But if you're an addict and you think that sober people are missing out on something, I think you're the one missing out on it. Sitting in a room full of people, what do we talk about in those meetings? Well, I can't really tell you. But it's a lot of God, a lot of spiritual stuff in those. Sometimes it's like going to church. I used to think that it was just people just sitting around being miserable because they couldn't drink. No, we're laughing, we're having fun. Like it's crazy, but I can't really talk. You have to go to those things and experience them for yourself, which is something that addicts are afraid of. They don't want to go in there. Those homeless addicts don't want to be known as an addict, because once you go in those places, it's really hard to go back to using in a normal way ever again. But the goal of recovery, it's not about white knuckling sobriety or clinging to a program like a lifeboat. It's about waking the hell up. It's rediscovering the sacred connection you've been trying to fake with chemicals. It's about plugging back into the source, ego unplugged, heart wide open. Once you truly awaken, you will no longer need any substance or even experience to feel any type of way. In fact, you will not want to be altered at all. There isn't any drug that you could take that could make the present moment any better. So start to associate this in your mind. Like people who use drugs and talk about drugs and psychedelics in that way, they're not plugged into the real shit. They can't be, because see, the ego is not allowed into higher consciousness. The ego cannot go there at all. So the more you work on your ego issues, the more you get to access higher consciousness. The ego is not allowed in there. And you'll notice the moments when you can quiet the ego. You can quiet it. You can calm that bitch down. You could and then you start to access higher consciousness. And you can't do that when you're high. You can't do that when you're altered. You have to be stone cold sober to be able to do that. Them's the breaks. It's true. It's true. You might be able to access something when you're high. You may be able to access something, and some of these drugs, they do quiet that ego, but also you can quiet the ego without using those drugs. So I'm very suspicious when people start talking this drug shit. Like, this is what I discovered at this ceremony, and we did a fire circle and all that. And I'm like, well, tell me something that you discovered while sitting in a room by yourself at 1 year sober. Because it takes about a year for your thinking to get unwarped. And when I say warped thinking, like, how can I take this illegal substance and ingest it knowing all the damage that it causes other people? You have to, like, that's a warped way of thinking. That's a warped way of thinking. I'm going to take this substance that I don't really know what it's going to do for me. I don't know how I'm going to feel. It might give me a bad trip. It might give me a good trip. I don't know. It could be laced with fentanyl. It could, God knows, where was it grown? Who did it come from? So you're going to take this unknown substance, not knowing if it's going to kill you or not. Your thinking has to be very warped to do that. You have to have a very warped thinking. So it takes about a year to even that warped thinking out. But if you think that you're going to get initiated into higher consciousness through addiction, it's only recovery is going to grant you access to the higher consciousness. Only recovery is. You can only become more conscious when you're sober. All right. So addiction is not initiation. It's a spiritual fraud. It's the ego in drag, pretending to be God. The psychedelic circus might make you feel like a cosmic traveler, but in reality, you're a prisoner, orbiting the same cage over and over again. Sobriety isn't a buzzkill. It's the real initiation. It's the only path where consciousness doesn't collapse back into hunger, shame, and lies. If you actually want transcendence, put the pipe down. Step off the merry-go-round. Meet God sober. Meet yourself in actual raw reality. Now, I'm getting better at articulating this. And I've had to deal with more than a few people in the past year who were trying to convince me to go back to using drugs. That if I really wanted to know what they were seeing, go back to using drugs. And that's when I was like, there has to be a line in the sand with this kind of shit. You know, even if you think that you can do illegal drugs without consequences, keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself. Like, you might be able to drink and not get addicted. You might be able to do drugs and not get addicted. That makes you super rare. Okay? You may also be able to quit drinking and doing drugs on your own. That is also super rare. Keep that to yourself, because not everybody can do it that way. I mean, if you are taking drugs and not experiencing any ill effects or consequences to your health, your finances, or anything like that, if you're because the vast majority, if not all people, actually do experience consequences, legal stuff, and all of that. So if you are able to do these drugs and have no consequences, even it's rare, so rare it may as well not even be talked about, but just keep it to yourself. I mean, if Aubrey Marcus were to get all these great revelations, if everybody else was able to get, why would you share those with anybody else? Why would you say where you got it from? Because the fact of the matter is that drug experiences are not real spiritual experience. They look like it. Oh my God, they look like it. But the real stuff is done in sobriety. So for those of you out there who have gotten sober, you're working a program, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's not my job to try to convince those who are still using to get sober. Your life is probably going to put you in a situation where you have to choose sobriety. When you do choose sobriety, I will be here for you. You can go to my website, send me a message at concreteshamans.com. There's even a phone number on there. If you need help connecting with resources, give us a shout, text me, and I'll be happy to connect you with resources. My phone number has been out there to help people get sober for a long time. Guess how many people contact me? Very few. Very few, because they know if they contact me, I'll probably help them get sober. That's how bad it is. Even though I can help almost anybody get sober. I can. Nobody has to be a drug addict around me. Nobody has to. So when you know that people choose that for themselves, it's like, That's the saddest part of being a shaman. Seeing people be offered help and then saying, I don't want it. I'd rather create more suffering into my life. But suffering burns out the ego. So what we say around here is suffer bitch. And so on for the AI song for today, I want you to consider this. When we make these AI songs, like, we could probably make these songs on our own. Like, we write the lyrics and stuff, but to be able to produce a song like this and have it ready for, like, it's really incredible. I love AI music for that. And so even we would probably, for these AI songs, there might come a day when I use AI to help make demos of songs, and then Merrick and I can recreate them with instruments and voices and our production methods as well. But this is a song called Sober Haze. And it's about realizing that you don't have to be an addict anymore, but the addiction was the thing that leads you to a higher consciousness. I love each and every one of you. Please have a lovely day. Take care of yourself, and I will see you tomorrow. Mwah.
I used to chase the neon sky, drink the lies that said I'd fly. Every vision left me torn, highest heaven, spirit one. They told me it was sacred flame, but I was just a ghost in chains. Now I see the holy spark. It burns in me, not in the dark. I left the haze, I broke away, found the light and clearer the days. No more illusions, no more fake. The real awakening's the path I take. I left the haze. Touch the stars, but I just crashed and healed my scars. Shadows fell while I decayed, till I stood up and walked away. The truth is here, it's always been. Not in the smoke, not in the sin. The ego's tricks I tore apart, and lit the temple in my heart. I drank from this cup. I drank from the cup, and I thought I saw the truth. It revealed itself to me wrapped in golden finery, but that was not the truth. The truth does not scream, it whispers. The truth does not come from a cup. It comes from within. The spark in me. Now finally see. I broke away, found the light and clear for days. No more illusions, no more fake. The real awakening's the path I take. more fake, the real awakening's the path I take. I love the haze, 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 now you finally see I found better days in a sober haze.